Hello, Ann Martin. I'm from Pima Community College, STAR uh, Institutional Research.
Uh, Thank you. And Eric Raymer.
Sorry about
Yeah.
that. Eric Kramer, PAG, the data science, land use data science coordinator at PAG.
Thank you. And Hannah Oden.
Hey, good morning. This is Hannah Oden. I'm planning manager at PAG.
Thank you. And James Tokishi.
Hi, James Tsukishi, Transportation Data Science Manager here at PAG.
And Matt Taylor.
Yes, hi, Matt Taylor. I'm the planning manager for the town of Marana.
Thank you. Melanie Sims.
Hi, I'm Eleni Sims, Principal Planner with the Town of Oro Mountain.
Great, thank you. Marola Romatka.
Hi, good morning, Mirella Hamatka with Pima County Wastewater Planning.
Great, thank you for joining. Pamela Keene.
Hi, I'm Pamela Keene, Planning Analyst for Tucson Unified School District.
Pari.
Good morning, it's Pari Mapintal, Data Scientist with PAG.
All right, thank you. Samantha Deaning. Samantha, you there?
Hi. Sorry, microphone problem. Samantha Denning, GIS Analyst with Pima County Development Services.
Great, yeah, thank you. Thank you for joining. Scott Robidoux.
Morning, everyone. Scott Robidoux, Manager Planning with the Tucson Airport Authority.
Great, thank you. Jim Chang.
Jim Chen, State Demographer with the Arizona Office of Economic Opportunity.
Thank you. Tracy Goodheim.
Tracy Goodheim, Assistant Director, Pima County Development Services.
Thank you. Ian Wen.
Yeah, Ian Wan, City of Tucson, Advanced Planning Department.
Thank you. Tara Solomon.
Hi, Tara Salomon, Senior Demographer with the Office of Economic Opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. Valerie Rice.
It's Valerie Rice, the Business Information Specialist at the Economic and Business Research Center at the University of Arizona.
Great, yeah, thank you for joining. All right, it looks like just that we have all introduced. And if the PAC team here, Bree, Dawn, Jesse, together, thank you for your support here. Then moving on. In kind form, regional planning efforts are enhanced by recording time donated by attendees, volunteers, and participants. PAC collects data on the time dedicated to meetings and activities to apply for use as matching funds for grants and the federal dollars. If you have paid with federal dollars, please let us know now. Time spent in preparation for this meeting will be estimated by PAC staff who are knowledgeable of the agenda and meeting materials. At the conclusion of this meeting, the session report will automatically calculate your time spent in this meeting. Time spent working on PAC RTA initiatives, programs, and special projects may also be eligible for consideration for matching funds. And moving on, an overview of sub-county population projection. And Eric, take away.
Okay. All right, good morning. I'm going to go over what presentation is about. We're going to talk about the population projections, give some background to that, and then talk about the county control total, historical population estimates and trends, and then get into the model methodology. They're showing basically three potential models. The policy, we'll look at the policy impacts, which will be included in the next round of forecast, as well as, and then get into the models, and then talk about how the raw forecasts are reconciled and in reference to the new control total. And then finally, a discussion and next steps. So sub-county population projections, 3 times a decade in the years 2, 5, and 8, we have the Arizona state and county population projections that are published by Arizona Office of Economic Opportunity, state demographer as well. And then the sub-county projections are published 9 months following that. And in general, AOEO does that for counties, but some COGs such as MAG and PEG may petition to produce their own projections. So the 2025 projections, which are this recent series, they are anchoring our sub-county projections. They're serving as the control total. So everything we do has to add up to those each year, add up to that series. One thing we have discussed previously is this series, the 2025 series, shows a remarkable contraction in population by 2060. So if you compare the 2022 and the 2025 county series, in 2060, there's a population loss of about 12.4%, about 161,000. And the reason for this has been some demographic and migration trends that have been analyzed since the 2010 census. Most notably, in migration that's increasing from an older population cohort that is increasing the death rate over that time period. So we also have trends also like a declining birth rate as well, which are contributing. So in this sub-county populations, the impact we'll see is that our population growth will be below expectations for some jurisdictions, or even population loss for some jurisdictions. So I'm going to talk a bit about population trends now. Population estimates, we're looking at 2010 to 2025. These are published by AOEO. And we're looking at the last 16 years we've used to model the future growth. We've also adjusted the population to correct for annexation bias. So the idea is that the historical annexations are factored out of the growth that you see. Now, yesterday, unfortunately, I found an error in our annexation adjustments. We're still analyzing that, so reviewing that, but we'll redo whatever we need to redo. And when we're meeting with individual jurisdictions, we'll discuss the changes. I can say now that this affects the time series model. It doesn't affect the destination choice model, and barely affects the 2022 forecast version of the model. But most of this, I expect to see the error correction will show up in the end of the series. So you might have jurisdictions getting more or less population than they currently have in this that I'm showing you today. But we will discuss all this in our individual meetings with the jurisdictions. All right, so these are the trends in general. Our annual growth rate. The background you see there, the individual points are the annual growth rate. The bold line is a smoothed growth rate, that's smoothed. And then the dotted line is the county trend for that growth rate. So Marana over the period has seen 90% growth in population, about 4.4 compound annual growth rate. Then it's seen some acceleration in the last few years. Oro Valley has had in that mid period has seen it's sort of a max or peak growth rate, and it's declined a little bit since the last few years. Or again, Oro Valley is approaching build out, so that may be to be expected. Sarita also has seen a mid-period growth. It grew 50% during that period. And its compound annual growth rate is about 2.7%. So, but again, fairly steady. South Tucson lost about 20% of its population from 2010. But recently has seen a slowing trend of losses. It's some stabilizing. And Tucson, over the period, had about 6.5% growth and roughly 0.42% annual growth rate compounded. And Pima County, 7.8% growth and about 0.5% compound annual growth. And what I want to say with this chart here is just to keep in mind what stands out here is sort of in the absolute terms of annual growth is that the major growth is happening in absolute terms is Tucson and Marana and Pima County. They're pretty close to each other. In the last 10 years or so, 10 years of period, Tucson had about 2,800 to 3,200 annual growth. Marana had about 2,400 to 2,500. Pima County about 2,000, 2,700. So they're close to each other, major players regionally in terms of the population growth, followed by Sarita and Oro Valley. Yeah, and again, in terms of raw growth, Tucson and Pima County are very close, but they have, they're low growth rates, but even so, their absolute growth is on the par with Marana. Again, this is sort of reinforcing what I just said, but this is a share. There's some share statistics here as far as the trends in the county. Tucson is currently 51.4% of the total county population, and since 2010 has lost 2.4 percentage points share. Pima County is 34.1% and has lost about 1.2 percentage points. Marana is 6.1% of the county total and has gained 2.5 percentage points. And Sarita, 3.6% of the county and 0.9 percentage points growth in share. And then Oro Valley is 4.5% of the total county with about 0.3 percentage points growth in that period. Next is the control total or the historical total connecting with the actual control total. And then you'll see it peaks maybe around 2045, flattens, and then drops in the last 10 to 15 years, that period, mainly due to that increasing death rate. Okay, turning toward the policy impacts. Again, Tucson has passed a middle housing ordinance and also is working with the community corridors tool. Both of them are potentially could increase the number of housing units, increase the affordability of housing in the city of Tucson. So we're thinking about what kind of impact that would have on household location choice. Would people want to live? Would more people want to live? Would choose to live in Tucson as opposed to some of the other jurisdictions because of greater affordability and accessibility to jobs in the urban center? So that's one of the major questions we were thinking about. And there was the Eco Northwest Tucson Housing Needs Study in 2024. It was based on that 2022 sub-county forecast. So that's brings in a little bit of a difference. They were assessing that they needed about 62,000 housing units between up to 2045 to address the current need for housing. Now, we don't have the data or the modeling capacity currently to assess these initiatives. But we're in discussion with the city of Tucson. I don't think it will be possible to incorporate in this round of the sub-county, but our coming land use model, Urban Sim, could model that type of policy, and we're still working on developing that model. So again, I think that the housing policy impacts will be for the next population forecast, so 2028, 2029. Okay, so getting into the methodology, the first model is a time series model. So what that does is it extrapolates a trend from the historical population. And that's what I was saying, that if the annexation bias was a little bit off, that will affect this model. So that's what we need to correct, that error. But that doesn't affect the model selection here. We were looking at the ARIMA, autoregressive integrated moving average, and the Brown double exponential smoothing models. We also looked at long and short training periods. We looked at from 1980 to 2025, and then from the shorter period from 2010 to 2025. And there are some trade-offs. The short term has a smaller sample size, which can have statistical effects, but it has more of the current development patterns that we've seen that may make maybe foretelling what is happening in the nearer term of our projections. In the long term, again, will be better statistically, but it incorporates periods like the 1980s that may not be representative of our growth in the next 35 years. So in theory, we prefer the short term, but then we looked at it also statistically. So statistical comparisons. Again, we compared the short, long, both of the ARIMA and the Brown. We looked at the Kaike information criterion, which is a balance of the goodness of fit against the model complexity. So the more complex the model, the more likely you're going to be overfitting it, and that's not great. So the lower the EIC number, the better the model, but you can't compare that across short and long periods, only within the same type of period. We have the mean absolute percentage error. So that measures the average accuracy of the forecast as a percentage. So we want to lower mean absolute percentage error, so that's indicative of a better fit. You can compare this across the different sample sizes because it's normalized. And then we have the R squared coefficient of determination, which again, we want to be higher value is a better fit. That also is normalized. And what we found was the brown short was the best, performed best for all the jurisdictions. So we have lower MAPE, and the R squared was a little better for the long-term model. But again, our thinking was that the 2010 to 2025 period is kind of reflective of what our current demographics are, current household formation rates, and current development pipelines. So that would be better, more relevant for our near to medium term projections. But getting back to the statistics, so brown is better than ARIMA for every period for every jurisdiction, and then brown short outperforms brown long on the MAPE, and then again the R squared long has a slight advantage, but again more MAPE matters, differences matter more in terms of comparing long and short. Okay, the next is a destination choice model. It's a multinomial logit destination choice model. So what this does, it takes our control total from AOEO and distributes that regionally across the 5 jurisdictions, and we've subdivided unincorporated Pima County into an additional 9 areas. We didn't include the Western Pima County because that's pretty stable. And then for each of these locations, we calculate a utility score that's best based on the destination attractive value. That is what we used to calibrate that value for each of these locations is our residential completion data from 5 years of residential completion data, showing where houses are being built and in what locations. We also looked at the remaining development capacity. That's another element of this equation, and accessibility for population and employment by TAZ. So within each of these locations, we had to aggregate that accessibility value, and we used a capacity weighted aggregation to do that. So depending on how much of the developable land was available in any TAZ, it would have a weight assigned to it based on the capacity. So we use that to aggregate. Otherwise, we would have a lot of and some of the really rural areas would have much higher values. So to aggregate up to these sub areas, we had to weight those accessibility values. And then when we combine them over together with our equation, I'll show you, we have a score that is then converted to probabilities, allocation probabilities, and that is used to assign the population to that destination. So our score, utility, is a composite measure of how attractive a destination is to a hypothetical incoming household. Higher utility, a higher probability of being chosen. We have our JSC, which is jurisdiction specific constant, which is that attractiveness of that particular location that's not explained by capacity or accessibility. And then we use the housing completions to calibrate that. And then we have our growth capacity, the natural log of the remaining residential growth capacity. And then we have our beta, which was calculated times the accessibility of value. And then, yeah, we found the best beta was across our 6 different beta values that we tested. Another thing to note here is that since we have a regional population decline after 2045, those years, the population loss is distributed proportionally. So the destination choice model is not designed for removing population, just allocating growing population. That's one other thing to keep in mind. And then here is the probability calculation, and with a hypothetical example of our utility scores and how they translate into probabilities. Again, hypothetical. Another model we're presenting as a possibility is our adjusted 2023 sub-county forecast. So what we do is we take our 23 sub-county forecast as a candidate and modify it so that we anchor that to a 2025 population estimates. We remove the discontinuities there if there are any, and then adjust it. So Marana's historical growth in this forecast is higher in the near term. So what we had to do is to apply the growth rates, the original growth rates of that series to the Marana base 2025 population, and then redistribute that jurisdictional population. So we calculate the jurisdictional shares of our updated Pima County total population and apply those back to the original 2022 county level totals. So basically what we're doing here is updating the base of this series and then using the growth rates and relative shares of those jurisdictions and then recalculating those values. So it should match, it will match the control total every year, but basically reproduce the previous series as far as the growth. The fourth thing is we have an average forecast. It's just as a reference, kind of an example, one thing we might do to compromise. Again, this is not going to, this will also need to be updated because of that error I mentioned earlier. But the idea is that it would balance the Brown time series, which Brown will emphasize the recent demographic trends and extrapolate them. And so we want to balance that with the observed household location preferences of the destination choice model. So what we're doing, we're just doing an arithmetic mean of the Brown short pro rata forecast, the reconciled number, with the destination choice moderate forecast. And then again, it's also consistent with the 2025 control. So getting on to reconciliation. So that for every forecast, we have to keep it within that 2025 control population number. So both the Brown and the 2023 adjusted forecasts require reconciliation. The destination choice model doesn't require it because it's doing a direct allocation from the AOEO county forecast. And the two-way average forecast is just the mean of those other reconciled ones. So our method we used was the pro rata compression method. It proportionally scales the jurisdiction raw forecast by a uniform factor each year. And that uniform factor preserves the shares across jurisdictional shares and the geographic distribution of growth. One of the downsides of this method is that it may affect the larger jurisdictions disproportionately in absolute terms because of the mathematical way that this is done. So where you have a raw forecast that is much larger than the control total, that can produce a net loss in some cases. But one of the good things about the pro rata compression model is that it's a more straightforward way of comparing models. You can look at the trajectory slope, the relative rankings, the pace of change. These are all coming directly from the models. And you also will know that the differences between forecasts after the pro rata reconciliation are entirely due to differences in the raw forecasts. We're not imposing an additional idea or additional process on top of that. Okay, so looking at the jurisdictional trajectories, just a caveat, the short brown here is not going to be what we will finally develop, and more likely you might see a little increase in Marana and a decrease in Tucson, and maybe a decrease in Pima County. Those are and Sarita, increase in Sarita. So those are some of the things that error will produce, but also the pro rata compression is also making that much more apparent. So Marana, so brownish again, but in general terms, they're not really changing what's going on with these different models. So in brown, we'll see the strongest growth in Marana, the high historical growth extrapolation there. For the destination choice, it's very substantially weaker, has constraints for capacity and accessibility that are slowing the growth in Marana for that model. And then we have the 2023 adjusted forecasts, which again is kind of approximating brown. And then the two-way average is kind of splitting the difference. Okay, next. Then you see this waterfall growth charts here in terms of absolute growth each 5-year period. So moving on to Tucson. So the destination choice model is the only method that's projecting Tucson growth. So lots of capacity in Tucson, lots of accessibility. So that's part of the reason why it's showing growth there. Now, brown is showing a net loss of 13,500 by 2060. Again, it's that pro rata compression that's affecting this loss particularly on the largest jurisdiction. Tucson has a modest growth rate, but this decline is accelerating after 2035. The 2023 adjusted forecast is similar to brown, but with less gains in the first decade and slightly less net loss than brown. And then you have the average, which is showing a modest net loss of almost 2,000 over the period. And here's the graph of those changes. Oro Valley, all methods here project the population growth being essentially exhausted after 2035, and then there's a slight decline after 2045. So that's really the effect of getting close to build out status. And here are the trajectories in graphic form. And in 2023, it just is a little more jumps in growth and also larger declines as well. So a little more dramatic. So Rita, overall, moderate and consistent growth, positive growth in the first decade, then a deceleration. And then unincorporated Pima County. Over the periods, so again, moderate and consistent growth and positive growth in the first decade, then deceleration, kind of like what's happening in Sarita. And then the Brown model for Pima County shows the least population growth over 35 years, so barely breaking even there. And with the corrections, probably will show a negative growth. Okay, and then South Tucson, again, minor consistent decline. All the methods show South Tucson declining from its current population of 4,500. And the smallest loss is with the destination choice. Again, that's not entirely surprising given its accessibility. But in general, slow decline. Okay, and then this is just a table for reference of the whole series, 5-year increments for your reference. Moving on to the next steps. Again, we'll discuss the revision of this data with jurisdictions and discuss some of the differences in the models, what people like, what people don't like, in the March to April 2026 timeframe. And then we will meet in PopTech will meet in April to vote on which projections series to accept as a sub-county series. And then in the May to July period, this will go before Regional Council. And finally, September 2026, we will submit this to AOEO to meet their deadline. And that's it.
Right. Thank you, Eric. I'm wondering if you have any question. Yeah, I think we have a question here too. Attendees, Kevin.
Yeah. Hi. I was wondering for the population projections, are there any particular assumptions about the age distribution of people moving to Pima County? You know, are there young people with families, old people who are retirees, or are there any particular assumptions about that? Yeah.
Well, what I was saying earlier was that the AOEO's series, the puck control total that we must use, that was revised from the 2022 series. And one of the big things about that, the change was that noticing that the age cohort, particularly the older age cohort, migrating, greater migration to Pima County. That's built into those projections, and so that is really making impact as far as why we're seeing a decline in the population towards the end of the series.
Okay, and that came from AOEO?
Yes.
Okay.
So, yeah, maybe Jim, you're here, so can you just add and a little bit more if you want?
Yeah, I'm going to defer to Tara to discuss this one.
Oh, sure. Yeah, Tara, you want to address a little bit about that additionally?
Yeah, that's true. What Eric said was correct. It could have actually we even lessened, we even changed the age distribution of migrants a little bit because after 2029, you won't have as many people entering that retirement age cohort. And so we kind of took that into account as well. So in our previous drafts of these projections, the decline in population was even larger than what we actually published. So that is happening. In our previous decade, like if you look back to anything we did before before this year, we had a lot more migrants in the younger ages. But when we finally got the final census data coming out and we made adjustments, we saw that there was a huge shift, and most of the migrants coming into Pima County were in the older age cohorts, and we weren't getting too many younger people in. And a lot of times it was out migration that was occurring for the younger ages as well. So that made the biggest impact in the change between the two publications in 2022 or 2022 and 2025. And those migration rates happened everywhere, not just Pima County. So there was just an effect of finally getting a hold of the census data, which we didn't really have in 2022. We kind of had to mix a lot of the data that was available at that time with whatever the Bureau had put out from Census 2020 and from the previous decade. But then we got a lot more detailed data by the time 2025 came around.
Okay, thank you, Tara. Kevin, that answers your question?
Yes, that was good. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Then Jim, you have a question?
Yes, I have a question about the last slide about the timeline.
Mm-hmm.
The previous slide, yeah, this one. So you have regional council. Looks like you are, you have made a lot of progress, and this thing is coming along very nicely. So congratulations on that. We are, in early March, middle of March, and you basically already have this these projections, and just need some minor tweaking. So my understanding is May to July. Sounds like you may have more than one regional council where you can take this to them and have them adopt it. Have them adopt the projections.
Yes. So one of them, and May to July, and because of schedule and so far, and the RTNX now actually passed. So, and there will be more, and opt-in, and or because I'm not entirely clear and how it will be scheduled. But one of them, and we are seeking, and the earlier could be a May. Usually we have that like a May approval and for our sub-county population projection. But if not, we can actually just asking like approval in July, and between like a May through July.
Okay. Yeah, I would encourage you to just move this along, and when staff feel comfortable, when you have done the consultation with all the jurisdictions, when it's ready, just have it approved early. We don't want to wait until September. September is the deadline, but we are trying to do this early because we still have the old sub-county population published on our website, and they are not consistent with the state and county population estimates projections. So it's a kind of an uncomfortable situation when you have state county from 2025 and the sub-counties from a previous edition. So we want to get this out as soon as we can. So at OEO, we are working hard to get these other counties out as
Yeah.
soon as we can. And I know Mag probably can do this, by June. And if you're ready, Mag is ready, and OEO is ready, there is no reason to keep waiting.
Yep.
So,
All right.
yep.
Yeah, sounds good to me. And if we actually just get the approval earlier, and sure, we can just first share. And but I'm just was including just in case, like all those and the documentation if needed. And but yeah, we can actually just return if it approves earlier.
Okay, yeah. And just keep in mind September, that's the absolute deadline, and we are trying to get this done maybe 2 to 3 months ahead of that deadline.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah, just in case, keep in mind, and if you haven't had a chance to review those, and please do. And we are, especially for the jurisdictional partners, we are trying to just schedule in the March and April, early April. That would be better if you can do. So let us know, and right after this meeting, and just email me or just email to Eric to schedule a meeting in person, and hopefully, and that's actually is better. We would like to just share the methodology in detail, and if you have any additional things you want to discuss at the meeting, or just if you need additional team members to just join and to discuss further about that and subcounty population projection, and please actually just include any of your team members and can join the in-person hopefully, and individual meeting. Also just my apologies on like just the last minute kind of just the issue about the data, but I don't think that's a huge, but it can be a kind of just a little bit like a little bit higher than for the, as mentioned, and for town of Marana, and for city of Tucson, and a little lower. But we will just update and all of them as soon as possible, and especially for jurisdictional partners, and we'll share that the updated version and as soon as possible. Do you have any question about that? All right, yeah, thank you. And then moving on. Now 9:51 a.m. and we adjourn the meeting. Yeah, thank you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.